Hi, I'm David Riley,
I'm Nicholas Harvey.
and this is Three Distinct Knocks. Today we're here with Robert Huke, who's Director of Communications and Development for the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. But before we talk to him, it's time for a rant. This time, to everyone's shock, it's Nicholas ranting. Nick?
Thank you. So my rant tonight is regarding what I think we need to show the younger men in order to get them to join. I believe it first starts with a website. Your lodge needs a great website, something concrete that shows them a little bit about your lodge, the events you guys have, and how they could contact somebody who doesn't have an AOL email address listed. Um, but once they email you and they get invited to the lodge, even more importantly, I believe it's the experience we give guys when they walk through the door. Moving from Boston to Florida was just about as difficult and different for me as moving from the United States to any other country. First, there was snow, which I wasn't used to. And then there was the public transportation, the one way streets, the people from every corner of the globe, which replaced the beach, the sun, and the Jimmy Buffett loving, sandal wearing, 5 o'clock somewhere locals I was used to. I was not a Mason yet, and having no friends and not really knowing anybody, I somehow stumbled upon the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts website and called them. I made a phone call and spoke to Brother Bruce Smith, because everybody speaks to Brother Bruce Smith, and told him that I was interested in learning more about Freemasonry. He told me about an open house that was happening either the next week or the week after that, and I decided to check it out. As soon as I walked through the double doors with the large square and compass to the open house, I was greeted with a warm smile and a bow tie. And I'll never forget Jeff's bow tie, because I don't think I had ever seen a bow tie on someone in person prior to that. And little did I know that at the time this man would have such a beautiful foundation for me in masonry. Never before had I felt so welcomed or shook so many hands at once. People were coming up to me and introducing themselves, but they weren't leaving after they said hi. They would stay and ask me questions and see what brought me there. And they seemed genuinely interested, which again, I wasn't used to. Someone walked me over to the buffet table and handed me a plate. We sat down and we spoke some more. It strangely felt like I was at a party, but with people I had already knew. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, and even though I didn't know much about masonry, I knew that if this was Freemasonry, then I desperately wanted to join. But sadly, I also had a much different experience at a much different place. I was already a Mason, and I walked into a lodge one night, and two or three people came up to me and said hello, but they didn't ask me for my name. They didn't ask me if I was a Mason. They just ran off somewhere. I felt like a stranger in a strange place. It was hard for me to jump into the conversations. They were like a game of double dutch, jump rope, where you're just trying to fit in. It was I didn't want to come back because I felt like I was inconveniencing them. I believe that younger men want to be recognized, respected, and to feel included, especially in this day and age where much of our lives are spent in the digital world. There's nothing more pleasant than when a brother shakes your hand and asks how you are and waits for a response. That he isn't distracted with the hundred or so other things that are going on at that time. You know he's busy, but you know he cares, and it means that much more. There's not a cell phone in sight, because at that moment, the most important thing is spending time with the brethren. For our regular listeners, it's no surprise that I do not care for George Washington's connection to our fraternity. And if you research what his Masonic CV actually looks like, you may be disappointed. Instead, I'd like to propose that his picture and name be erased from our lodges forever, for there are far greater men amongst us in our own lodges. They may even sit in the exact same seat, meeting after meeting. And have you ever asked them for their story, gotten to know them? I've met brothers who have donated their time and their hard earned money to local pet shelters. I've met powerful CEOs that spend their weekends in soup kitchens. I've met politicians and actors and various other celebrities that only wish to be called brother and don't want their influence from the outside world brought into the lodge. And I've seen these brothers treat everyone who walks into our lodge, whether it be a member or a candidate or a prospect, or even the delivery guy who delivered pizza. They treated them like an equal. And that's what made them want to learn more and come back. I can definitely recall the pizza guy saying, getting his receipt signed, leaving, and just before he left, he goes, "Wait, what do you guys do here?" And we tell him, and then he said, "I'll definitely be back." That's what I think the younger men want to see in order to get them to join. They're looking for a place of belonging. They're looking for, in a lot of guys, friendship and fellowship. Some of these guys don't have father figures in their lives, and they don't know who to go to, but they want to see these guys who can walk them through it, and definitely the most hardest part of their lives, and get to know them more and show them what they should do. And with that, I would like to welcome our guest for this evening.
Robert Huke joined Rural Lodge in Quincy. I love that it's Rural Lodge in Quincy because, Quincy is such a rural area of Massachusetts in 1994. His family's been involved in Freemasonry for generations. I know his father. It would be hard not to know his dad if you're involved in the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. But he's also a past master of Rural Lodge, and he works as the Director of Communications and Development for the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts since 2005, right?
That's correct.
And I'm going to start with a bad story because I want to let you know why I like the new awareness campaign that the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts has adopted. I have a good friend who's a perfect prospect for Freemasonry in many respects. He's a family guy. He's a minister in his church, and he's smart, very active in his community. And in response to one of the open houses back when we were advertising with Ben Franklin, which was not my favorite campaign, he visited a lodge. And he said, "Well, what does Freemasonry do?" And they said to him, "We make good men better." And he said, "Well, how?" And they really didn't have a good answer. And what I like about the new awareness campaign is that it really strives to answer that question. It really gives you a sense of what Freemasonry can be in someone's life. So I want to congratulate you on that. I think it's brilliant.
Thank you.
How did you move from the Ben Franklin campaign to this? What was the thought process in making that change?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me tonight. It's really appreciate this opportunity to talk about this. So we had introduced the Benjamin Frank campaign, Is There Greatness in You, in 2005. And I guess it was about 2012, 2013. And so we'd obviously been out there 7-8 years, and it was feeling like it was time for a change. There were a couple of other things going on internally within Grand Lodge. We brought on Chris Rooney as my associate director, and really wanted to give him the opportunity to take ownership of what we were doing. We also felt that we needed to move to a more digital strategy. The previous agency that we were working with, that wasn't their strong point. So it was part strategic, but it was also part just the feeling that we need something new. And so we interviewed several agencies and eventually landed on Small Army in Boston, brought them on, and working with them, introducing them to Freemasonry, because it's fraternity they weren't familiar with at all. And through that process, we arrived at the Find More campaign, and that's where we are today.
Yeah, Could you talk to me about, well, first off, for people who aren't familiar with the campaign, could you kind of give us a summary of what the highlights of it are and what the message you're trying to get across to people is?
Yeah. I think the basic message that we landed on is that Freemasonry helps a man be the best version of himself, and that he can find more in his life wherever he needs that. It is available to him through Freemasonry.
And if people haven't seen the way the branding for the campaign works, you can go to massfreemasonry.org and take a look at the way the website is organized around that basic theme of finding more in various aspects of your life. The other thing that I really like about the campaign is you used actual Freemasons.
Yes, we did.
Real, live, living Massachusetts Freemasons. I mean, I know some of those guys. I noticed that you chose some of the better looking Massachusetts Freemasons, which explains why I'm not in the campaign. But
well, no, we strive to have a cross section.
There is on the website, there's a gentleman in St. John's Lodge's office. Nobody in St. John's Lodge knows who he is or why he's in our office. It's just something that we've thought about for the past 10 years since we saw that image.
Well, we did a photo shoot, and fortunately, we have keys to pretty much everywhere in the room, or sorry, everywhere in the building. And the photographer really likes St. John's room. And that's Brother Ken White from the Meadows Lodge in East Long Meadow.
Huh. Okay.
See, asked and answered.
I'm pretty sure we did ask the master for permission to go into the room.
Okay.
So I think the video that you have on the website with the campaign is also really interesting. You show some guys helping someone, it looks like helping someone move. You show someone walking into a lodge room and being greeted by a bunch of guys in regalia. You show guys hanging out and playing pool. You show someone going on a run, looks by himself. You show someone coaching youth basketball. What was the thought behind choosing that kind of variety of images? What were you trying to express?
Well, we wanted to show that Freemasonry is for men, just regular guys who have interests outside of the fraternity. They're involved in the community. They're involved with their children in this case, and that through the narration, Freemasonry is kind of like the underlying foundation of a lot of who they are and what they're all about. And so we just tried to show them in different ways, inside and outside of Freemasonry, do that. Now, we also released 3 new videos earlier this year. I don't know if you had a chance to see them yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
It made quite the rounds on the internet. And I think the Grand Lodge of California got jealous, and now they're trying to beat you guys.
They have, and Scottish Rite is doing a lot of good stuff. And I think they've borrowed some of the themes that we introduced, including the line about, again, being the best version of yourself.
Right.
It's awesome.
I really like. I think you did a good job of aiming at some of our younger target audience with the line, "You can't unfriend brotherhood."
Yeah. Yes.
Younger guys. For a number of years, I was sort of the front door of Amicable Lodge. If someone was interested in joining, they talked to me before they went to their pre-application interview. And the younger the guy was, the more likely I was to hear something from him. Like, I'm looking for face-to-face friendships. Social media is not doing it for me. I'm sick of what is it that the kids are on today? MySpace, Nick? Is that
wow? Nope. We're on Instagram.
Instagram.
I mean,
WhatsApp.
no, just Facebook. Don't come to Instagram, please. Just
Yeah,
stay
the
on
old
Facebook.
people on Instagram.
Gosh.
Yeah, they really are looking for that personal, face-to-face, real-life meet space connection.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good line from you.
Yeah,
I also thought
we kind of went back to that theme in the video where it says we have friends lists, but no real friendships.
Right. I think that really that's a powerful message in today. I think a lot of people are feeling isolated. We have a very mobile society, which means that a lot of people, like Nick, move to places that they haven't lived before, and they feel isolated. They feel isolated because they are only communicating through social media, and they don't know where to go find good people to hang out with. And I think by offering that to them, you're really hitting the right note. So
yeah,
I think that's awesome.
I think so.
Yeah, obviously you've invested a lot of money into it.
Yeah, I guess that goes without saying.
So
what? Go ahead, Nick.
So what you said? You mentioned the digital marketing. Where are you guys targeting, aiming? What avenues are you guys trying to go down? Obviously, the YouTube videos, the Facebook page.
Yeah, great question. So for our digital, and one of the great things about digital is the analytics that you get back, which are not available through radio and television. So, we're able to judge what's working and what's not working. And so we've changed up the mix. Currently, we do use Facebook, a lot of Google Display, do the Google Ad Network. LinkedIn, we've tried, had some success there. So we look to go to all kinds of different avenues.
That's awesome. How have you guys dealt with the possible, I don't know a better way to say this, the resistance from the old guard? Have you met any? Are they open to it?
It's mixed. When we first introduced it, and it was a pretty new idea, we did get a lot of pushback. But the success that we had, I think, turned a lot of people. And we hear less of it now, but it's still out there.
The guys that are coming to the lodge from your digital campaigns, are they under 30 years old, over 30? What kind of demographics are you looking at?
Average age of our new members is 36, 38, right there. We don't target, or we don't ask people who, when they come to us through our advertising to give us the demographic information. So it's hard to say, where they are, but we know through the new member rolls that we're at about 38.
It's awesome.
I've heard some of the pushback and some people saying, the craft shouldn't be advertising. But Freemasonry is always advertised. We had, in the 1720s, there was a procession through central London of Masons carrying the emblems of the craft. What was that if it wasn't advertising?
Absolutely.
We used to be in the social pages of the newspaper all the time. What's that if not advertising? It's just we're changing where we meet people as where people are moves.
Correct. Yeah, the very first... I'm sorry, David?
I just don't understand the pushback. I really don't.
Well, it's not consistent with our principles and our values. The very first sentence of the prologue of the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts Constitution says, Freemasonry seeks to proclaim its principles as widely as men will hear them. What does that mean if not to go out and tell the world who you are and what you do?
Exactly. It's, we don't want, we want men to come to the craft of their own free will and accord.
Correct.
My father notwithstanding, my mother told him if he wanted to marry her, he had to be a Mason because she couldn't trust any man who wasn't a Mason. So I don't know
Smart
if he,
woman.
whatever. Yeah, my mom was a fierce lady, and it was the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts in the end who took care of her when she was dying. She was at Overlook for hospice care. So the fraternity kept its promise to me and to her. But my point is that we want guys to come of their own free will. You and I come from Masonic families. My father was a Mason. My grandfather was a Mason. Your father's a Mason. It's a tradition in our families. Guys like Nick, who don't have that tradition in their family, how are they supposed to find us?
Yeah,
right.
If
correct.
we don't reach out to them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it, still doesn't absolve the lodge from the importance of guarding the West Gate. I mean, that still has to be part of how the lodge operates. Just because somebody shows up doesn't mean they're entitled to come in.
Right.
Even if they have the fee for their degrees, it doesn't
That's
mean
right.
they're entitled to come in.
That's correct.
We have enough grumpy past masters. We don't need any crazy people in our lodges.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
I think one of the things that people in other jurisdictions may not be as familiar with is the Massachusetts open houses. Those started quite some time ago, and I think they brought in a lot of guys who, it seemed to me that the average guy coming in from the open house who was younger said something to me like, my grandfather was a Mason, my father is, and I'm looking to reconnect, and I didn't know how to do it.
Yep.
And so the open houses gave those guys an opportunity to come in. What are you seeing now from the open houses in terms of their success and who they're bringing in?
I think we have a couple of categories that most men who are interested kind of fit into. Certainly the family connection is one. They are aware of Freemasonry's reputation for community service. They're looking for that opportunity to give back. And I think that message of being the best version of yourself is connecting, because we are starting to hear people repeat that back to us.
That's when you know your advertising's been effective, is when you start hearing people say it back to you. That's without any sense of irony whatsoever.
No, it's great to hear.
Yeah. Or they have no idea that you're the one who came up with
it. Yeah. What do you think the lifespan for this campaign will be? Where is it going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've already kind of evolved it. Again, when we first launched it, it was really on that theme of find more. We're still using that theme, but we've moved into, again, that idea of being the best version. So I think we can continue to evolve it and change it as we feel the messaging is improving and resonating.
You've obviously spent a good deal of time and money and resources in terms of members thinking and members participating on this campaign. Massachusetts's membership numbers are some of the strongest in the country, but I'm not sure that they're where we want them to be. Do you feel like this campaign, do you see a rise since this campaign has started in the number of people coming into the fraternity in Massachusetts, or are we trying to hold against a decline?
So the inquiries that we're getting are very good. The close, if you want to use that term, isn't quite as strong. We think there's a little bit of a disconnect between where we get guys to register, through the Grand Lodge website, and then the process of handing them over to the lodge and seeing it through. And that's where we're starting to direct more energy and attention and trying to close that gap.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that I did when I joined the fraternity, because a smiling J.R. Roach said, "Oh, why don't you go to this?" was I went to the ambassador training,
Right.
which is training for guys in the lodge who want to be that point of contact, to be the person who gets the referrals from Grand Lodge and then take it forward. And I think the fact, regardless of the quality of that training or the content of that training, and I'm not saying it was bad, it wasn't, but regardless of that, just the fact that you had thought about having that training says a lot to me about where your thinking is going. Because I do think the weak link, the graphics are all beautiful, the videos are awesome, but when they hit the lodge, if there's not that follow through, if the secretary never calls them back, it's rough to make the close. You can't leap in every lodge.
No. And it unfortunately leaves a permanent bad taste in the candidate's mouth. The potential candidate. And we've actually haven't done the ambassador training in a couple of years, and recognizing where we are having that gap. We're going to look to bring it back in the next year.
Yeah, I don't know if the ambassador program is, I'm agnostic. There was a shop in San Antonio, Texas that sold, prayer candles and herbs that you were supposed to use for various things, called Papa Jim's. And the motto on their catalog was always whatever works. And I sort of take that same approach. I don't care if it's ambassador training, but I do think lodges need education in the importance of responding quickly, in the importance of having a real positive way of handling people who are inquire and making them feel a part of the lodge. I also think we need to think about what our process is. I hear a lot of lodges saying that they invite guys to dinner with them multiple times before they become candidates. I think that's a good move, but where does that guy sit? At a table by himself at dinner, or with your worshipful master? Is he having a good experience getting to know guys, or is he just standing in a corner staring at all these people running around with strange aprons and collars?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Lodges really need to think critically about that whole process. Membership retention is, I think, one of the biggest issues that we have. And that starts from the first time a potential candidate walks through the door. You're already working on membership retention.
I have a really good friend who joined a lodge, which, I don't know if this experience was universal at that lodge, so I'm not going to say what lodge, but he joined the lodge and they hadn't had candidates do any sort of exemplification for years. So he volunteered to be the first one, and after each degree, he returned the full lecture. And he went to, his EA, his fellowcraft, his Master Mason degree, the meeting after his Master Mason degree, and then he went to that fifth meeting where he didn't have anything to do. He wasn't a candidate anymore, and he didn't have to exemplify anything, and nobody talked to him. So he went to a sixth meeting and nobody talked to him, and he didn't go to the seventh meeting. If you don't, you have in my opinion, one of the reasons we have 3 degrees that we spread out over time is so that a lodge has 3 times to remember who the new guy is and to get to know him and to embrace him and to make him a part of the lodge. It's my argument against one-day classes, and we can have that fight. But if you don't take advantage of that opportunity, the guy's not going to keep coming back.
Yeah, I don't think it's an accident that the candidate's name is repeated so many times. in the degree.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. That is a really good point. The next time someone asks me why do we do that, I'm gonna say it's so that the members of the lodge will remember his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where whenever I'm in a degree and I have to say somebody's name, I can't. After the degree, I know his name I know his middle name for the rest of my life, but I can't remember like the simplest things. But it's like
I can remember the full name of every candidate I conducted as senior deacon.
Exactly. It comes with you.
Yeah.
Have other Grand Lodges?
I was secretary of my lodge. Secretary of my lodge, so I know everyone's middle name.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Have you reached out to have other Grand Lodges reached out to you? Have you reached out to other Grand Lodges to see what they're doing?
We had a number of inquiries from Grand Lodges. The Grand Lodge of Maryland was the only one who really picked it up and ran with it. But again, I think with what the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic Jurisdiction is doing right now, they've picked up some traction on that too. So I think more Grand Lodges are doing something.
Mm. And I think that's, as long as you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got approval, and I am so thankful. Totally did not see it coming, but I recently got approval from Grand Lodge of Florida to run Facebook ads for our lodge. And they said, there's rules and make sure, stay on the right side and all that. But I was completely blown away. Mm-hmm. And to the best of my knowledge that I've been able to find, I'm going to be the first lodge in Florida that does it. Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it caused us to reflect inward and saying, I could run these ads, and I've studied Facebook ads and digital marketing. I'm pretty good at it, I think. But I could get the guys into there, but we need to have a process once they're at the lodge of what we're going to do when they're there. And that caused, I think it was a lot of really good changes, a lot of really good discussions after that. I think Freemasonry kind of suffers from that. It's not my job, but it's that person's job, and I don't want to step on their toes. Mm-hmm. When really that guy didn't know, you know what I mean? And it's just like whoever could do it, just go out and meet the guy.
Yeah. I mean, it should be all of our jobs. And I would certainly encourage every lodge to think about their process. Why do we do what we do? If it's not prescribed in the constitutions, your lodge bylaws, why do we do it? If it's not mandated, we have the ability to change, adjust, improve, get better. And I think that the membership process is critical, obviously, and every lodge should be thinking about that.
What do you think? My opinion is that you took a kind of brave step in your advertising by talking about Freemasonry and truth. Mm-hmm. What brought that out into the advertising campaign? Why did you include that particular word?
Well, it's one of our tenets. Certainly, the brotherhood aspect, that's a natural. We don't specifically talk about relief because most people don't know what relief is. But we hit on that theme. And truth just seemed like it was important, particularly in today's day and age, where we're surrounded by so many half-truths, spin, that just affirming that was a value we cherish, and the belief that people are really looking for that and need that.
I think a lot of the younger guys come. Oh, sorry.
Go.
I think a lot of the younger guys come into the fraternity are looking for a place where they can explore their personal philosophy without having dogma pushed on them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's well expressed in the advertising, in the campaign. So I was really pleased to see it, but I also know you have to walk a fine line there, because you don't want to imply that Freemasonry takes the place of religion, because it doesn't.
No, of course not. And hopefully that's not something that some people would, I mean, obviously we know people confuse us with religion, but hopefully that's not something they're getting out of our advertising.
Yeah, I think you did a good job of trying to present that in a way that makes it intuitive, rather than having to cross some sort of hurdle there.
Yeah. And I should have mentioned that before when I talked about the feedback or what we're hearing from potential members about why they want to join. Certainly that personal growth, the development, the enlightenment, they're absolutely looking for that as well. No question about it.
Yeah.
Do you think, now, of course, traditionally Freemasonry has never came out against, the thousands of conspiracy theories or other craziness that's going on. Do you ever think that Freemasonry will get to a point where they'll come out and, like, if someone, I don't know, like Donald Trump says he's a Freemason or something, and he puts it on Twitter or something, do you ever think Freemasonry or Grand Lodges in general will get to a point where they'll respond to some of the conspiracy theories or negative stuff that comes out?
We have, on like an individual basis, it ends up being a big waste of time. You're not going to change people's minds and attitudes. I think we just have to keep doing what we do it as well as we can. Try to let our actions speak for ourselves, speak for themselves. And we actually had an example not too long ago of a group that came in from, I think, the Ukraine. I'm not even sure why they came to the Grand Lodge, but they took a tour of the building. And in fact, one of them left and they said, "You've changed, my mind or my idea about what Freemasonry is." So that was refreshing.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's an unusual person who's involved in conspiracy theories that you can reach that way, though. One of my favorite authors is Robert Anton Wilson, and he talked to that the logical form of a lot of conspiracy theories is what he called a strange loop, which is that any evidence that you present that contradicts the conspiracy becomes evidence of how powerful a conspiracy it is.
Yes.
And
we've seen that.
So he said, your only choice is to disengage with that. I had my second, I think it was, open house. We had a woman come into the building and take a tour. And I thought she was with this group of other people, but she had just sort of, when they walked into the building, she walked in with them, but she wasn't with them. And when I finished the tour and, had pointed out all the portraits of famous Freemasons in Cambridge and all that kind of stuff, I said, "Do you have any questions?" And I could tell she had been ramping herself up for something. She just had that nervous energy. And she said, "Where's the statue of Baphomet?" And I said, "There's no Baphomet in Freemasonry." And she said, "Well, you're just not high enough level Mason to know."
That's right.
And I'd just taken my Scottish Rite degrees and was feeling very full of myself. And so I said, "Ma'am, I'm a 32nd degree Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret. If there were a Baphomet in Freemasonry, I would know." And she actually spun on her heel and left. I think she was afraid I was. But yeah, those people aren't reachable. And it's a waste of time to try. And it ends up being like trying to play chess with a chicken. No matter how good you are, the chicken's just going to knock over all the pieces and take a poo on your board. So you might as well just not engage.
Yeah, that's pretty much what
you've seen the video of David. You've seen the video of David Icke in the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts.
It's I'm not sure if I have.
Yeah, he's sitting in Corinthian Hall, and he's whispering into, like, he had someone with him filming on their phone probably, and he's whispering about how spooky the building is because it's so empty. It's such a huge building, and it's like the Marie Celeste. No one's in it. I'm like, yeah, you dummy, you're there at 2 p.m. on a weekday. Yeah. No one's there. Come back at 7 and see what's going on.
I'm gonna have to take a look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, he had it up on YouTube for a while. It was there. I always think it's nice when the conspiracy theorists actually come and visit us.
Yeah, sure. We just have to treat them well.
So, what do you think is the next? What's next in terms of awareness campaigns for the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts?
Well, I think what's next for us is our new Grand Master, which we don't know who that is yet, but most worshipful Paul Fulton Gleason will be completing his term in December, and obviously his successor will be installed that day, and we're going to kind of wait to see where he wants to take us.
And then the building staff will spend 3 months moving every portrait in the Grand Lodge building one space over to keep them all in order.
Why don't you tell our listeners about that? I still don't believe that's true.
It's absolutely true.
Go ahead and explain, David. Describe the building and what exactly happens, and why.
So the building has portraits of every past Grand Master of Massachusetts hung in order from the most recent to the most ancient. And they when a new Grand Master is installed, the immediate past Grand Master's portrait goes up, and that means every portrait has to move a space. And so the building staff, it literally takes Rob, how long does it take?
They're actually pretty quick about it. It's a couple weeks. We don't have to move them all. Because starting in 1733 and moving forward, those guys aren't going anywhere. It's kind of when you start moving back, and then they get to kind of an empty space where they can move a portrait, but they don't need to move the next one. So they don't have to move. I think we're up to 88. I'm not sure exactly how many they move, but it's not every single portrait.
You spoiled the story, but
I'm sorry.
In the name of accuracy
and truthfulness.
But I do in truth. But I do like that's a tradition we have.
Yeah, it's great.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Freemasonry is nothing without its pomp and circumstance. And I think the other thing that I like about the awareness campaign is that you show some of that without it being all that you show. And you let the mystery remain. Because I think part of what attracts people to the fraternity is, curiosity is not a bad thing.
No. Absolutely.
It's not all we want from someone who's coming to us, but it's always a motive for a guy coming to the fraternity.
And that pomp and circumstance will be attractive to some people. We want to let them know a little bit about it, that it exists, because there are people who are drawn to those things. People who may have enjoyed kind of the quote unquote ritual that they experience in church. Maybe they may or may not be actively attending church, but the formality, the ceremony, that's something that kind of spoke to them, spoke to me. I don't regularly attend church, but I found it in my college fraternity, and I found it in Freemasonry. I enjoy that aspect of it. So we want people to see it, know it exists, but obviously we don't want to give it all away.
Ritual is a basic human need.
Correct.
There's a reason that every culture has ritual, every religion has ritual, Joseph Campbell said the difference between a folk tale and a myth is that a folk tale is something that is told for amusement under any circumstance. A myth is something that's told in a special place at a special time in a special way, accompanied by ritual. And it is what moves the human heart and human spirit. And I think Freemasonry does that beautifully, and fills a real need that for some guys doesn't exist anywhere else in their life.
Sure.
They don't have that sense of special space anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, that speaks to the universality of Freemasonry. There's a reason why, regardless of all the changes in our society in the last 300 years, Freemasonry still survives. There's a reason why men of all races, religion, language find value and meaning in Freemasonry because of that universality. And it's expressed primarily through the ritual and certainly through the brotherhood as well.
Yeah. So to completely change the subject on you, what are your plans for next year in Freemasonry?
Excellent question. I anticipate and plan to continue to be active in Rural Lodge. I am also really enjoy the Valley of Boston, a member of Lafayette Lodge of Perfection as a worker. I'm also involved in the Children's Dyslexia Center, Boston North, and I find a lot of value and meaning there. Between that and having a couple little girls at home and family, that pretty much keeps me busy.
Bob, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Nick, who is still trying to discover how to sleep with an infant in the house.
Oh.
Yeah.
How old?
5 months.
Wow.
5 very long.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
It gets better.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Just when you
eventually.
think it's getting better, they turn into teenage girls.
Yeah.
Shut up, David. What's
I asked a good friend of mine named Eddie when he was going to let his daughters date, and he said, "Well, I've talked to my wife, and she says I need to be reasonable. I think 42 is good."
yeah. What was really nice is we had a ladies' brunch we used to call it a widow's dinner, and that kind of a little dark. Plus, it didn't invite people who weren't widows, so we just called it a ladies' brunch, and there was a great turnout, tons of widows and Masons' wives, girlfriends, etc. And I brought my wife and I brought my daughter, and man, the OES and the Rainbow Girls just took her. I'm pretty sure she's a OES member now at 5 months, but I don't know.
I was at
in a couple of weeks, she'll find out she's a grand officer in OES.
I was at a wedding in India in 2010, and there was one other American Caucasian couple. I mean, it pretty much stood out. So we gravitated towards each other, and one thing led to another, and I discovered that he was a Mason in Connecticut, and just, of course, became fast friends from there. And back in February, we were down in Miami and got together with them, and he's got a teenage son and daughter, and the way he described it was he can't wait for his son to grow up, and he doesn't want his daughter to get any older.
Yeah.
I do look forward to Nick's little girl becoming a rainbow girl. I think that'll be a great thing.
That'll be awesome.
I'm a big supporter of DMLA, so I guess I have to be a supporter of Rainbow as well.
Yeah, and I joined OES. I will go on record saying the OES ritual is ridiculously. They have nothing on us.
That's right.
It's so long. I was like, what I think happened is like some guy was like, "Oh, you guys got to learn ritual because we have to learn ritual," and then gave them like twice as much to learn, and they learned it. And me and the other guy that went through at the same time, we're like, it was like 2 fellow crafts degrees, and we're just like, at some point, we're like, okay, where are we again? What are we doing? All right, yeah, all right. Let's continue. Let's take a breather. Let's take 5.
So is there any last words you'd like to offer people about the awareness campaign or the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts?
Well, certainly if you're curious about what we've done, I want to encourage you to check it out. Visit our website, massfreemasonry.org. Additionally, if you have questions, you want to talk further, more than happy to receive inquiries. We do get them, and we'll always gladly respond and talk and offer any insight or advice that we can provide.
Yeah, I'm always surprised. The other day, I make assumptions about who listens to our podcast that are completely unfounded and not at all data driven. And I sort of assume that it's we appeal to the Masonic nerd segment is my assumption. But the other day on Reddit, some guy said he had been listening to our podcast since before he took his entered apprentice degree, and that he was so. Yeah, if you're listening and you're not a Mason and you're curious, reach out to your Grand Lodge in your state.
Absolutely.
And have your questions answered by people who actually know what they're talking about.
That's right. It's make an informed decision.
Yeah. Anything else, Nick?
No, thank you for coming on, and thank you for going through this. I think the guys listening are going to get recharged and want to go back and start doing some digital marketing on their end.
Yeah, that's a great message to leave. Promote your fraternity, promote your lodge, let the public know, who you are, what you're all about, and most importantly, how to get in touch.
Yeah, I always joke that I wear Freemasonry on my sleeve, literally.
Nice.
But I try to make sure that I talk about it in as many different contexts as possible, and I'm surprised sometimes at who has questions and what they want to know and who's interested in becoming a part of the fraternity. It's, it's not always the person that you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
No, that's right. And you meet some pretty fascinating people out there, good and bad, but mostly good.
Yeah. Mostly good. Yeah. Well, I really do believe that the good people outnumber the bad.
Yeah, very much so.
That's an article of faith for me. So please,
I agree.
Nick, don't run any analytics on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm really grateful to you for coming on and being patient with our technology troubles and figuring everything out with us and talking to us about this. I think the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts has really taken a leadership role in trying to do the modern version of a procession through central London with the symbols of the craft. And I think you've done a great job of representing the fraternity in the new media where people actually are living. I think that's awesome.
Well, thank you very much. And certainly thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure to do this with you guys.
It's not necessary to lie. Our guests are so kind.
David, I actually looking forward to seeing you again sometime. I mean, not digitally.
Yes. Well, I'm back in Massachusetts now.
I know.
So you will be seeing me around the Grand Lodge, I'm sure. Right. The fantastic photography on our website is courtesy of brother Aaron Sherman. Our theme song, which Nick will not forget to include in this episode, was composed by worshipful Christopher Duggan. Our website is maintained, curated, and lovingly tended by brother Nicholas Harvey, who also is our analytics division, our consumer engagement division, and our executive vice president of information technology. We are incredibly thankful to our Patreon sponsors, who include Charles Ward, Bill Stutner, Adam Roth, Amicable Lodge, Amicable Lodge, Jacob Savick, Arthur Shillington. If you tell us how to pronounce your last name, we will do it right eventually. Patrick Harvey, Christopher Patty, Masonic Revival, Fossil Bluff. Use code 3DK for 20% off at Fossil Bluff. Aaron Sherman, Robert Patterson, Lou Dominich, David Vogel, Michael Hembrecht. Did we miss you? Let us know. We look better than we ever have before, thanks to our good friends at Masonic Revival, who are doing awesome things with ties, cufflinks, lapel pins, and have a double-sided past high priest, past illustrious master apron that blew my mind. It was amazing. Supervision for this episode was provided by Rakcha. You can find us at 3distinctknocks.org, where you will find additional episodes and other content. Please visit. The opinions expressed in this podcast and on our website are those of the individual contributors and do not represent the opinions of any lodge, Grand Lodge, or other Masonic body. I'm David Riley, and I'm incredibly thankful for the brothers that have made this podcast and my Masonic journey so rich, interesting, challenging, and fulfilling. I hope 3 Distinct Knocks has helped you make some daily progress in Freemasonry. Thank you for listening.